Hello, everyone. Welcome to New Gen Politics. I want to play a clip from CNN post-election night where they asked themselves, why did the Democrats lose this election? And then we'll talk about it a little bit.
I'm interpreting the results tonight as the revenge of just the regular old working class American, the anonymous American who has been crushed, insulted, condescended to. They're not garbage. They're not Nazis. They're just regular people who get up and go to work every day and are trying to make a better life for their kids, and they feel like they have been told to just shut up when they have complained about the things that are hurting them in their own lives. I also feel like this election, as we sit here and pour over this tonight, is something of an indictment of the political information complex. I mean, we've been sitting around here for the last couple of weeks, and the story that was portrayed was not true. I mean, we were told Puerto Rico was going to change the election. Liz Cheney, Nikki Haley voters, women lying to their husbands. Before that, it was Tim Walz and the camo hats. Night after night after night, we were told all these things and gimmicks were going to somehow push Harris over the line, and we were just ignoring the fundamentals. Inflation, people feeling like that they were barely able to tread water at best. That was the fundamentals of the election. And so I think that both parties should always look at the results of an election and figure out what went right and what went wrong. But I think for all of us who cover elections and talk about elections and do this on a day-to-day basis, we have to figure out how to understand, talk to, and listen to the half of the country that rose up tonight and said, we've had enough.
So he makes two very good valid points, which is one, the gimmicks didn't work, right? The Liz Cheney supporters, the Nikki Haley supporters, they're going to come out, the appeals to men at last minute, the ads, none of that worked. What people voted on was purely policy. And then he goes on to say the number one thing was the economy. And the number two thing that people voted for was the border. And that what goes along with that is safety and crime. Those are the two issues. That's won the election, was no one can afford to live right now, and people don't feel safe leaving their homes. Those are things that are not social issues. Those are things that are practical, real day experiences that people are having that they can't deal with anymore. And no amount of celebrity endorsements or gimmicks or t-shirts or slogans or whatever was going to change that. And despite every night on CNN, like he said, them saying, oh, this is going to do it. This is going to win. This is a real slug to Donald Trump in the face. This person's endorsement or whatever. It didn't matter because nothing could fix the broken problems of the economy and the border. Then none of that could cover up those two major issues. And when Kamala would not produce a plan, when they understood that she is in power currently and not doing anything about it, more border crossings than ever under her administration. The inflation has gone up. When they say, oh, we're not in a recession, and people look at stuff at the grocery store, they know they're being lied to. They are sick of being told, don't believe your lying eyes. So, and when she came out and said, well, I was born in a middle-class family, that doesn't answer anything. That didn't give any answers, no accountability, no responsibility, no actual policy on what she was going to do. And that's why she lost, because people remember the economy under Trump. They may not have liked him socially, even his social policies. Most people definitely didn't like the things he said, but it didn't matter, because what mattered is, first and foremost, can I live a sustainable life? Can I pay for things, and can I be safe when I leave my house? Then I can worry about the rights of other people. Then I can worry about what I think the President of the United States should act like. Those issues come later versus your own survival. Your survival comes first, and that's what people voted for in droves, massive amounts, winning the popular vote by a knockout. They thought even if there was a slim chance, because in their head they're convinced that she was going to win, if there's a slim chance he won, they could still point to and say, look at the popular vote. The majority of people didn't want him. Well, that's not true. An overwhelming majority of people wanted Donald Trump for this election. And a lot of these people on The View, on CNN, on the whole mainstream media networks, like he said, that they're a huge problem. They have to look in the mirror, is that they didn't understand why. When they interviewed people and people said their number 1 and 2 issues were the economy and the border, and then they said, wouldn't take them at their word. They didn't believe them. They said, oh, well, the economy's doing great. Like I saw interviews where people from CNN and these major news networks were interviewing people on the street. They said, who are you going to vote for? Trump. Why? The economy. Well, the economy's doing great right now. And they would just look and laugh and they'd be like, what are you talking about? The economy's terrible. I can't afford anything. Like the newscasters, the interviewers would try to convince and gaslight the people into believing that they can pay for things. They would gaslight them into believing that they're safe, even though they see crime happen around them, the increase in it. Don't believe your lying eyes. It didn't work. So what do they do now? Because one major faction that broke away was young men who went overwhelmingly for Trump. And when people are young, they usually solidify their political beliefs, and those typically stay at least on the same side for most of their lives. Well, young men are finally rebelling and going very far to the right. So that's a huge problem. They thought they were worried about men, and they did nothing to appease them. They shamed them. You're a misogynist if you don't vote for a woman. You're a racist if you don't vote for a person of color. You need to care about women's rights. Well, what about men's rights? What about men's rights to just live a fulfilling life, to just go to work, to just have a family, to just not get stabbed on the subway? What about those rights? No, it's not about you. In fact, they said it isn't about you. We don't like you. It's time for you to pay for the sins of your father and do all these things for women and minorities and everyone around the world except for you. And they said, no, we're not going to do it. And so what are the Democrats going to do? Are they going to actually turn around and appease men? Are they going to change their strategy? Are they going to develop a new ideology? Who knows? But that's a question they need to have. They need to look in the mirror and say, why did we lose? And every time I've seen somebody ask that question or answer that question, even attempt to answer the question, I saw one woman on The View talking about that, and they all jumped on her. Oh, that's not true. I don't understand how people could vote for a fascist and a Nazi. And she's like, because they can't afford stuff. And they're like, well, but he's worse than Hitler. Okay, but they can't afford stuff and they don't feel safe. So, what are they to do? And how are you surprised by this? And they just rip each other's heads off. Even going on and just seeing liberals talk in general, just on the internet, you see on Twitter and other spaces, they're, anytime someone tries to answer the question, how did we lose? They get the head ripped off when the person makes a valid point. Oh, he appealed to men. I don't like what he said, but it resonated with men, and that's why he won. And then people say, oh, well, those men need to get over it. How did he win? Right? Oh, well, he appealed to women and their safety. They value safety more than abortions because they think crime is way up. Oh, well, those women need to care about other women's rights. And it's just like they would never answer. They will never, it seems they never want to change because they're so entrenched in their beliefs. They believe they're right. Even though they lost, even though they got trounced, they cannot fathom that they did anything wrong, that they missed a demographic to hit, that they had a bad idea, that they didn't execute things over the last 4 years in a way that people responded to. And so going forward, they need to change that. But I don't think they will because they refuse to look in the mirror. Anybody who gives an answer or questions what happens is going to get kicked off the panel. They're going to get kicked off the show. They're going to get downvoted into oblivion, right? And so what's there to do, right? When someone gives you constructive criticism, especially when you ask for it, and then you tell them to just go F themselves, they're going to stop giving you criticism, and then you're going to sit there wondering why you lose over and over and over again. So this is a huge win for the Republicans, not only this physical win in this election, but demographically. They pulled way higher in every demographic. It seems that the country, and even in cities in very, very democratic states, he won big. The tides are turning and the culture is changing. The DEI is dying. And so people need to adjust their philosophies, basically their ideologies. The conservatives are going to take this momentum and run with it, make America great again. They're going to go further to the right. Young men are going further to the right. The women tend to follow the men. They'll probably start heading further right as well. And generationally, you'll see this problem where the boomers they're locked in their ideologies. Like I said, young people change and then their ideology basically stays the same, moves a little bit. But so as the older generations die off, the younger generations are going to be consistently further and further and further right, because you're not appeasing them in any way. You're trying to shame them. And as we saw, 2016, the shame didn't work. 2020, arguable how legitimate that was, but it didn't work, right? Not really. That the shame wasn't the same as, oh, you're a misogynist if you don't vote for Hillary and you don't vote for Kamala. It wasn't the same thing. So, but even culturally, we've seen that shift. And now, especially this one was very, very shaming. Like, if you don't support this or that or women's rights, or put everybody in the world, literally everybody in the world, to come here and be a citizen and get the benefits of our society, and even more than you do, welfare and housing and college and all this stuff before you, then you're a racist, misogynist, bigot, awful human being, waste of space. And it's not working anymore. It hasn't worked. It didn't even work in 2016. And it's gotten worse and worse and worse for them. So going forward, either that's going to have to change, or the Democratic Party will never win again. If you can't appeal to the people who won't vote for you, and you can't even keep the people who do, you've got nowhere left to go, right? I mean, you can't call people garbage. You can't call them Nazis. And they don't even care anymore, right? Like, I saw so many things on Twitter in the Madison Square Garden where people of color were saying, finally I'm with my fellow Nazis and stuff. They were leaning into it because they don't care anymore. And then you can't even keep the demographics you had. Black men, every time through the last couple of elections, have been going increasingly towards Trump. Hispanics went for Trump big this time. So you're losing the demographics you thought you had on lock. And you're not going to be able to count on that illegal immigrant vote because Trump's going to deal with that problem. So he's going to lock down the border, and they're not going to get the right to vote like they would have under Kamala, the pathway to citizenship. So you've got nowhere left to go. The Hail Mary has been locked out of, as a possibility, and now you have to actually appeal to people's problems. So I hope the Democrats take that to mind, because I want them to change. I don't want them to lose just because they're Democrats. If they change and become better, then there's a possibility that they could win again, and it could be a good thing. There could be really good candidates who are Democrats who do well, and we should support those candidates if they come along. I'm just not seeing it now, and I don't think they're going to do it because no one can get constructive criticism without getting their head ripped off by their own constituency. So that's my thoughts on this. I'm glad to see Trump won. This is a little explanation as to why I think he won, and hopefully people who don't like Trump don't understand this is kind of why he won. It's very simple. Economy, safety. That's it. Ignore the man, look at the policies. That's what people cared about this election, and that's what put Trump over the edge. So thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. If you think I'm right on this, if you think there's other aspects I missed, or you think that there's things in the future that the Democrats can do better, let me know all that down in the comments below. And as always, thank you for watching.